Well, this is several problems. We're going to do several problems from section 0.1. But before we start those, there's two things to keep in mind. The product or quotient of an even number of negatives is positive. So you're familiar with that in the English language. A double negative is a positive. And the product or quotient of an odd number of negatives is negative. So when we see a product involving more than one sign, we'll just count the number of negatives, and if it's an even number of negatives in that product, we'll know that that product will be positive. Otherwise, if it's an odd number of negatives, that product will be negative. So here we have 3 minus a minus 7, which equals 3, and we have two negatives there, so that'll become a plus 7, which equals 10. Now here the number of negatives is odd. There's just one, so we know our product is going to be negative, and 7 times 5 is 35. So our final answer is negative 35. Let's do a couple more. By the way, these are from section 0.1. And here's another one, number 3. Let's see. 30 divided by 10, and that's a negative 10. Well, this is a quotient, and we have an odd number of negatives, so we know it's going to be negative. And now we know that that's 3 times 10 over 1 times 10. So the 10's divide out, and we get negative 3 over 1, which is negative 3. So, number 4, let's see what we have. Oh yes, 25 over 20. And we have to simplify this or reduce. So notice, for this problem over here, I factored first and then divided out common factors. So we're going to do the same thing here. So this is 25 is 5 times 5, and 20 is 5 times 4. And now the 5's divide out, and we have remaining 5 over 4. And we are done with that. Well, now we're in section 0.2, and we're going to multiply and divide fractions. Well, when you multiply fractions, it's quite simple. You just multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, and there's your product. On the other hand, when you divide, you have to first convert the division into multiplication, and you do that by inverting the divisor. So we have A over B divided by C over D. We'll turn this into multiplication by replacing C over D with D over C. We inverted it. And now we have multiplication, and then we'll multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. Now here we have multiplication of fractions. By the way, is the sign going to be even or odd? Well, we have an odd number of negatives, so this product will be negative. Then the denominator under the 3 is a 1, but 1 is understood, so we don't have to show it. But we'll multiply numerator times numerator, and that's 3 times 5. And the denominator is understood, it's 1, and 1 times 7 is 7. So that equals, this product is 3 times 5 is 15 over, and the denominator is 7, and we're done. For 2, our first task is to invert so we can have multiplications. So inverting 3 over 2, we get 2 over 3. And now this equals 1 times 2 is 2. And we have a 10 times 3. But this will reduce because 2 goes into 10 5 times. So now in place, and 1 times 2 is 2, so our remaining factor in the numerator is 1. And 5 times 3 is 15. And we're done. But hold on, we're going to do one more. And that is we're going to add fractions. And when you add fractions, you have to get a common denominator. So I have number 3 and 1 over 10 minus 3 over 2. And first of all, you're going to say, wait a minute, you just said you're going to add, and here you are subtracting. Well, subtraction is just a form of addition. You're adding a negative number to another number. So this equals 10 and 1 minus 3 and 2. And the question is, well, what's the common denominator? What's the LCD? Well, to find that out, we'll do this. We'll write down every denominator, 10 and 2. So this is a little aside. And now we'll rewrite 10 in prime factorization form. And the prime factorization form of 2 is just 2. So prime factorization, 2 is prime, 5 is prime. By the way, 1 is not prime. So the LCD equals, write down each prime factor, so 2 times 5. And then, we don't have to write the 2 down twice. And then install the largest exponent on each of those factors. Well, the largest exponent on 2 that occurs is 1, and on 5 that occurs is 1. And why don't we see it? Because it's understood. So we'll find the product of those two, and it's 10. So our common denominator is going to be 10. But we don't have a 10 here. So we can only alter this by multiplying by 1. But 1 in the form of our choice. So one way to write 1 is 5 over 5. And notice 2 times 5 is 10. So now we have that common denominator. This already has it, so we have a 1 there. Minus, and 3 times 5 is 15. And so now we have 1 minus 15 is negative 14 over 10. And that will reduce, I'll stick the negative out here because that's 7 times 2 and 5 times 2, and the 2's divide out, and now we get negative 7 over 5. And we're done. And that takes care of section 0.